Hi, and welcome to Shine's Parenting Through Cancer session. We know that about 45% of the people that we support at Shine have small children. And we know that having cancer and supporting those children can be really difficult. It can be hard to know what to say. It can be really worrying if you're suffering from fatigue and you're trying to look after your kids. But it can also be worried if you see your children suffering from anxiety or worry about your own health. So we're really grateful to Caroline from the Fruit Fly Collective for joining us this afternoon. She will be talking about the tools and resources that she's developed and her own experiences and knowledge of how children sort of process cancer diagnoses and how you can support them through your diagnosis and treatment. So we will see you for a live Q&A after the session, but we'll hand over to Caroline now.
Hello, I'm going to be giving a 20-minute chat about supporting your child when you are living with cancer. So there are plenty of reasons why people don't want to talk to their children, and they normally involve feeling protective of them and feeling that they might get frightened by you talking to them about your cancer. But here's the thing, children easily pick up on things, and that includes even young children. So even if you think you're really good at hiding your grief and your pain and your emotions, they often sense something's going on. And actually not telling them or partially telling stuff can be more anxiety provoking than telling them the truth. And that's because they have an amazing imaginations and they often create fantasies that are even worse than the truth. So as long as we can support them with their feelings and their sadness, we'll become good role models for being open and honest. So I want to quickly say some lessons that I learned. I did a primary school cancer education program. So we did it to over 1,000 children. It was on the science of cancer, but I learned some things that I think help parents feel less fearful, really. One is that kids really, really enjoy talking about cancer. They're really curious about it. And that includes children who have recently been affected. Also, they have the amazing ability to understand complex things, especially if it's done age appropriately. And they can deal with the truth that often adults underestimate. They don't have the same fears as adults at all around cancer, and they really enjoyed the opportunity to be able to talk about it openly. It was a safe space, and so they could ask all their questions. And finally, that every single child knew something about cancer. So to think that we can, protect them is a bit naive, because all the public health campaigns, charity campaigns, cancer is out there and they pick up on things. So it's best to be open and start talking about it so you can be in control. So to begin with, starting those difficult conversations, some things that you might want to think about, preparing yourself. It's a lot easier to say, I have cancer out loud in the mirror first, and get used to that being out loud before you tell your children. So rehearse what you're going to say, and the more you say it, the easier it becomes. Choose a calm space and a calm time, so try not to do it before bedtime or school or anything like that, a time when the children can ask questions. If you have more than one child, tell them all together. Try and be honest and don't use misleading terms like I have a bug or I have the big C, because they won't understand that. If you're not ready to tell them everything, that's fine. You can just tell them little bits and pieces. That's called like the jigsaw approach. But try not to predict the future. Try not to suggest things that I'll definitely be there for this school trip when you might be in hospital with treatment or anything like that. So if you do get emotional, then that's absolutely fine, because that's actually showing them that it's fine to be emotional too. And that silences are okay. Sometimes they need time to process what's been said. It's quite good to start asking whether they have any concerns and worries that you can mop up at that moment, and sort of enable them to ask questions in the future. And remember that they probably will ask questions at really odd times, like when you're in the biscuit aisle in Sainsbury's, and try to be prepared for those. Basically tell them that you love them and tell them that they will be looked after no matter what. It's all about security. It's all about reassurance and providing boundaries that they feel safe in. So what to tell them? This will obviously depend on the child's age and development. So little tiny ones won't understand really anything, but 3 to 4, 5-year-old will have a basic understanding of illness. So they will have been ill themselves, had colds, chicken pox. So you don't need to say much. So often they just want to hear you say, Mummy's got a sickness called cancer and are trying to get better with the doctors. Don't be surprised if they just go off and play. And they often won't ask any questions. So older children, 7 to 11-year-olds, 6, 7, 11, will have the capacity to understand a bit more about cells and cancer in the body. But like the little ones, actually, they may have a thing called magical thinking. So they might think that their thoughts or their behaviour or what they said may have caused the cancer. So be aware of that. And sometimes they may feel like cancer is contagious because they're used to colds and chickenpox, people talking about being passed on. So again, with this age group, you can just, they will fill the gaps of their knowledge with their own stuff. So try and be quite honest, and but you can tell them as much as you want. They probably will ask questions. If you can't answer them, that's fine. Just say, I'm not too sure about that, I'll come back to you. You can prepare yourself by reading the common questions that children ask. So again, just start with a simple short sentence, something like, I have an illness called cancer. It means some lumps are growing inside me that shouldn't be there, and the doctors and the nurses are trying to get rid of them for me. So for teenagers and older people, then, they want the truth and they want it delivered in a non-patronising way. Most teenagers will get information from online, so actually try and provide them with reliable sources is good. Teenagers might find it much more comfortable talking when you're not face to face, so it's not confrontational. So having sitting on the sofa side by side. One parent once told me about actually doing the washing up was really nice. So she'd be washing up and he would be drying, and that gave them the space. And of course, the car is always a good place. So it can also be good to have some resources at hand. So to have like a booklet, to have like a website, have an app, to have a cuddly toy, things like that, to help you talk about what's happening. It can take the pressure off you just using your words. You can fiddle with something, they can fiddle with something, and you can sort of not be so focused on each other. Talk to them, carry on talking to them throughout your treatment, provide opportunities for them to come to you with questions and keep them open. So the question, are you going to die? Nobody ever wants to answer that question, obviously. However, probably every single child's thinking it. The little ones will probably say it, but the older ones will think it but feel like it's too rude, not sensitive to actually express it. However, they'll be thinking about it. So it's quite good to approach the subject. You don't have to answer it particularly. You don't have to be, you can be quite vague, but actually knowing that subject is not off the table, that we can talk about it if you need to, then that's fine. So you could just say something, at the moment, doctors say that I should be okay, but if anything changes, I'll let you know, that sort of thing. Okay, so how do you, looking for children's behaviour and their emotional responses to when you've told them the news or throughout your treatment. Again, children, every child's different, but it will depend on their age, their kind of their coping mechanisms, how much they understand about cancer, their how much of your diagnosis is impacting on their life and how you're coping. So tiny ones might be unsettled, cranky and clingy, and want to breastfeed more and that sort of stuff. And that's all probably around separation anxiety if you're not with them all the time. So 3, 4, 5-year-olds, they may return to sort of younger behaviours such as sucking the thumb or wetting the bed. Some may become afraid of the dark or monsters or swimming or something completely random that they weren't afraid of before. And most will have some kind of separation anxiety, and that normally comes up at bedtime or at school, nursery drop-off. Some kids may suddenly start acting out and being quite aggressive, or some kids may be completely different and start being really too good to mask the fact that they might be feeling sadness or anxious. So 6, 7, 8, 9, 10-year-olds kind of thing, they will have a wider range of emotions and feel those strong emotions and complex emotions that they may not be able to articulate, such as guilt, anger and sadness and withdrawal and things like that. Some kids have no reaction at all, which can actually be really hurtful, but it's their way of processing and also coping as well. So it's worth remembering also that fear is often channeled into anger. So if they start to be angry and aggressive, often you can use that period to actually understand what is behind the anger and try not to get angry yourself, so you can open that up. Some kids will mirror your side effects. So if you're feeling nauseous, then some kids will have suddenly stomach aches, some kids headaches and things like that. Some may have trouble with attention, so that could be a real problem at school. So teenagers tend to have similar reactions to younger kids, and sometimes that's a bit more extreme. And it's quite hard for them emotionally because they struggle, because they want to be independent, because that's the whole point of becoming a teenager. However, they struggle with that because they feel guilt about how they should be actually staying at home or what. And a lot of teenagers use denial as a coping mechanism, which can be, again, quite hard to deal with. But all these responses are normal, and they're just reacting to the changes in their environment and, and in their family. However, if you feel like it's gone over, like way past a point, then do get sort of some kind of help. So you can ask your CNSs, your healthcare team, your school, and they should be able to signpost you to special places, so counselling or whatever services. So how to help and support them at home. So what can you do to make life a bit easier? And again, if you just remember, it's really all about security. It's all about communication, being open, for them knowing what's happening, and that really helps them because they like to have their own little boundaries. They will push against it, but actually really that boundary is very comforting to them. So stick to your children's routine. Stick to the home rules, the boundaries, everything that's normally been in place. Try and stick to that as much as you can. And if you can't, then tell them. So try and tell them in advance, this is what's going to happen now. And calendars and daily timetables are your friend. So get a piece of paper, but especially for the little ones, do morning, afternoon, evening, write down what they are going to be doing, who's going to be looking after them, who's picking them up, who's taking them to school, all those kind of things. And then they feel like they are in control of their life. Again, it's about reassuring and security. So also for older kids, you can do monthly calendars, so they have an idea of what's happening in the future in the next few weeks. So if you have a treatment, you could put that on their calendar so they know that dad's going to be flat out in bed, don't approach him for 2 days here. Also, football is actually cancelled because we can't take you there. So as long as they've got that, but they may act up about it, but as long as that's in their head, that really, really can help them. I'll try and also put things that are not cancer related on the calendar, because that can help them feel like it's not like overwhelming for them, because they are very self-centered. So put on, I don't know, kind of karaoke night or whatever they do, reading club or whatever. So I'll try and help them identify their feelings. This is for all the children, but the ways you can do it. So for younger ones, getting a little soft toy, and using the soft toy to talk about feelings. So say it's a hedgehog, we've got a hedgehog called Truffles. Say, is Truffles feeling sad today? Was Truffles very angry about this? And they can often kind of role play with Truffles, and that often mirrors what they are feeling. You can use books, so there can be any books, but it could be books about nightmares, it could be about some kind of peril, it could open up a conversation and say, have you got any fears and worries, and those sort of things. And opportunities to play out their fears as well. Sometimes it's really good to listen to how they're playing and what's going on, because that might highlight some of the concerns and some fears that they may be feeling. So get them feeling included in the family, especially if they're young. They can often feel like they're just in the way. It's a very stressful situation. Can you just sit over there for a minute? Here's an iPad, whatever. So, which is fine, but sometimes it's quite nice to include them in. So one way of doing that is to help around the house kind of thing. And often children do want to help, but they just don't know what to do. So you can have really basic, change the toilet roll, put the dog food out, match up the socks, things like that. And obviously the older they are, then the more useful they're going to be. Yeah, make a simple salad, go to shops, that sort of stuff. And that can be really nice for them, because sometimes they do want to do something tangible. Creative outlets is again a brilliant way of doing it. Get pens, papers, envelopes, and they can make you cards, sticker books, all those kind of thing. And stories, making stories, and sometimes you can tease out things that they may be worried about, but otherwise it might just be their way of just going bleh. For some other kids, like physical outlets are really good. So if they're like kind of super anxious or kind of angry, then running out, trying to get them into a safe place where they can just play football, do whatever. In terms of how to manage their worries, one sort of tried and tested way is get a box, any old box, or make one up, Amazon box or whatever, and call it the worry box. They can decorate it, and it's a way that they can park their fears, so their fears won't evaporate, or their worries won't evaporate, but they can park them there for a bit. And it's quite nice to do just before bedtime, or before school. Not to have it in their bedroom, and all the stuff that they're worried about, they can write it down, draw it out or whatever, and pop it in the box, and it's quite a nice space. You could then ask permission, is it okay if I look in the books? And that might give you an idea of what's going on in their heads. Okay, try and arrange some fun times for when you are feeling stronger. Maybe not arrange it, but just get a list and stick it up and say, look, when I'm feeling a bit stronger, we're going to have a picnic in the front room. We're going to watch such movie. It doesn't have to be anything big or energetic, just something little that they can go, look forward to. Another good thing is to get all the stuff that you can think of, like Lego, really basic puzzles, kind of really sort of games that require low energy and no mental energy, for when you're feeling naff, and you can still have that kind of communication and that sort of connection with your child. Provide cancer education. There's lots of stuff that I'll give you a list of resource, but there's a great app, there's some good books, there's stuff that you can find that talks about cancer in a very age appropriate way. And then so as well as the cancer education, it's quite good to talk about the body. It's quite good to show them whereabouts in the body that your cancer is, or where the treatment or whatever. So you can then talk about how is it going to affect the hugs, how is it going to affect meal times, how is it going to affect all these other things. And again, it's just giving them information, giving them the understanding, that's so they're clear, they're not second guessing anything, and they just have a bigger understanding of know what's going on. And then finally, really, is be honest. On bad days, just say that you can't cope, because kids can understand that. Just say, look, today I just can't, interact with you today. Tomorrow's a better day. Please, whatever. Finally, for teenagers, they need time, they need space, and you try to give them that within their normal rules and discipline. Really encourage them to see their friends. They may not want to, but try and encourage them, because friends are a really important source of support. Also, they might find an adult who isn't in their family actually the perfect person to talk to, and that's good. And then just try to keep communication open. That's going to be really hard. My son, I try and talk to him about stuff, and he's just like that now. But have different ways of communicating, look at different ways. What one might work and one might not. But like using text or WhatsApp messaging group, or they could create their own Facebook closed book, a closed page, which obviously they wouldn't have Facebook because they're teenagers, but you could say, oh, can you include all the family members and the friends? And they could be in charge of that and give them a bit of ownership. It could be notepads left on the table. It could be, a big kind of chalkboard. It could be saying every week we're going to go to this cafe, or every month we're going to go to wherever, and we're going to have this time to talk about stuff. If cancer doesn't come up in our chats, that's fine, but it's always open for you. Those kind of things, and see what gels with them. If you don't succeed at first, try and try again. And finally, really, a lot of the nurses have said that they have allowed teenagers to come into this in particular for chemo, and they sit with, and they just chat and they just talk through. And a lot of the teenagers are really interested in what's going on. So maybe that's an opportunity as well. So yeah, all the resources, I'm going to compile a list and you'll have access to that. There's lots out there for lots of different types of formats and age groups. It's just trying to find it really. So good luck. Thank you. Bye.